Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a double buffed Pokemon from the Season 24 balance update, and that is Shadow Dragonite. Now with these season changes, Shadow Dragonite's fast move Dragon Breath got reworked to a Psywave clone, which means more energy generation, but less fast move pressure. Additionally, it got access to a new charge attack of Thunder Punch. This allows Dragonite to function as almost a Swiss Army knife Pokemon, as its electric and fighting type coverage charge moves allow it to hit back even in its really difficult matchups. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and let's test out Shadow Dragonite in the Open Great League. Great lead in game number 1, leading into a Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Opponent safe switches into an Altaria, and I have a very good response available with the Dedenne. Altaria can fight back in this matchup as Flamethrower will inflict serious damage. I'm going to overfarm as Dedenne, but I have no incentive to bait. I'm going to be full sending Play Rough to guarantee the knockout onto Altaria and win switch advantage. I was able to save a bunch of energy on the Shadow Dragonite as well. Now in comes the Ninetales. Shadow Kanto Ninetales is a terrifying Pokemon this season, as now it has lightning fast energy generation and its weather balls hit harder than they normally would have. In hindsight, maybe shielding Dedenne was not the wisest decision here, but I was assuming that they were probably weak to Dedenne in the back. And I do end up getting my shield right back, which is very nice. My opponent will be firing off another last second weather ball, and this time I'm just going to let it go and instead go for farm on Dragonite. And in the back, they are weak to Dedenne, they have a Azumarill. Previously, Shadow Dragonite was completely walled here, but now I have access to super effective Thunder Punch. And Thunder Punch just inflicts so much damage onto Azumarill. Azumarill is able to grab my shield with Ice Beam, but Dragonite is just too far ahead. Look at this. They're going to commit the shield. They're trying to get to the charge move, but Azumarill is just too slow. Shadow Dragonite at the back-to-back moves. Thunder Punch knocks out Azumarill. We have the superpower loaded for the Ninetales as well, and Shadow Dragonite's energy just overwhelms an opponent, and we take the Game 1 win. Hopping into the next match, and we've got the Battle of Flying type Shadow Dragonite against Corviknight. Corviknight's Sand Attack being double resisted means they basically have no fast move pressure in this matchup. They can outpace, but an Air Cutter will not knock out. A Payback would inflict devastating damage, but the thing about running a Pokemon as Glacius Shadow Dragonite is most people do not like to full send their nuke moves. Here, I try for a catch onto Lickitung, but I appear to have mistimed it, so unfortunately, I do not get that catch to go through. However, this time, I am going to time my Thunder Punch correctly. I throw right before the Air Cutter. If they shield, I'll just switch into the Lickitung and catch the Air Cutter. Now, they can't ever really get to another move because they can just lick them down if they stay in, so they're going to bring in Toedscruel. Toedscruel, a very neutral matchup, and I'm extremely happy to bait this out, because obviously this would be the worst case scenario for Dedenne. I don't think 2 Body Slams will knock out, so I'm going to go for a Power Whip into a Body Slam, as Power Whip, I believe, does more overall damage. Now, I will get one final Body Slam. Lickitung very low on health here. Body Slam lands into the Toedscruel, and I'm able to get that farm down, and they do not get their move. In the back, they have Togekiss. I aggressively send in Dedenne, and whether my opponent catches or not, at this point the game's over because I'm pretty close to a Thunder Punch on Dragonite. They catch, but all that's going to do is just make Dedenne more difficult to remove from the field of play. So they're able to waste that Parabolic Charge, but unfortunately with Dragonite so close to a move, this game is already over. Psyshock will be shielded, I get the Parabolic Charge, and now I get to switch into the Dragonite. Shadow Dragonite on even energy wins the 1s and 2s versus Togekiss. So normally that used to be one of the worst matchups a Dragonite could see, but now with Thunder Punch and Togekiss now on Charm, that matchup feels a lot more fine. We move to game number 3, and it's actually a pretty awkward lead. Shadow Dragonite into Trevenant. Now, unfortunately for me, my charge attacks are actually walled here. I'm going to build up and still bluff like I have a move that can actually do damage to them, but I do not. And Dragon Breath, it is way better energy generation, but I'm actually losing the fast move war here. They're doing more damage to me than I'm doing to them. They're going to save switch into a Shadow Blastoise. I will go for the Thunder Punch. I should have thrown this Thunder Punch sooner because I did end up losing some health that I really didn't want to lose, and now I send out Lickitung. Lickitung will be hit with the Hydro Cannon. I knew that whatever I swapped in would be hit with the Shadow Hydro. That's why I'm saving Dedenne for whatever they have at the back, and it's going to be a Dugong. This is pretty nice for me, as Dugong, not going to be a big fan of the Dedenne that I have waiting for it. The Power Whip lands, that's some pretty significant damage. Dugong will get to go for an Icy Wind, but Icy Wind just simply will not be enough to KO. In comes Dedenne. I aggressively pivot out. This is enough for the drill run. I'm going to put up the shield, and that's a great Icy Wind bait from my opponent. In comes Trevenant. I'm just going to look to ramp up my damage. Normally, this would be about Parabolic Charge range, but because I'm debuffed, Trevenant can probably hang on here. So Trevenant will CMP tie me here. They do win charge attack priority. Shadow Ball lands, but the Dedenne hangs on. The Dedenne will get to land this Parabolic Charge. Now I'm going to switch into Lickitung, snipe with the Licks, but they live on 1 HP. Oh no. And that right there, losing the Lickitung is going to lose me the game, as now Dugong can just Ice Shard down everything, and unfortunately we lose a Heartbreaker. We move to the next match, and it's a Nightmare lead. Shadow Dragonite into Dedenne. This moveset allows Dragonite to have so much play into its counters, but unfortunately, Dedenne is still a wall. I'm going to need a committee of Pokemon to get rid of this Dedenne. I'm going to start with shielding a Parabolic and then going for a Superpower. That's going to deal nice damage to Dedenne, and now I can send out Lickitung. Lickitung is more than happy to absorb Parabolics, and even at +2 defense, I should be able to lick them into Body Slam range. So I get to go for the Body Slam. This should just be knocking out Dedenne, and that way it'll finally be removed from the field of play, but no, my opponent is going to end up shielding. So either they really value Dedenne, or they're very weak in the back to Lickitung. Lickitung can almost get that full farm down of Dedenne, but will fire off the last second Body Slam. Body Slam will knock them out, and they're going to send out a Whiscash. That is not what I was expecting to see. They're going to send out a Drifblim as I pivot into Dragonite, and look at this. I'm at double Thunder Punch. It doesn't matter if they CMP tie here. They don't, but Dragonite would have won it. I get the Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch is going to knock out that Drifblim cleanly. In comes Whiscash. Whiscash cannot Mudshot down, and Shadow Dragonite. Oh my. Superpower connects. Devastating damage onto the Whiscash. In comes the Dedenne. And it doesn't matter what you throw. Super effective Mud Bomb, not going to be a problem. The Dedenne absorbs that hit. They go for yet another Mud Bomb, but they just do not have the energy needed to outpace the Dedenne. The Dedenne will put up the shield, get to the Parabolic Charge. Bit of an interesting team from my opponent there. The Dedenne was obviously a worst case scenario, but they were very weak in the back to Lickitung, so that ended up working out nicely. We see a familiar lead in the next match, leading Dragonite into Kanto Ninetales. They save switch into Cresselia. I thought about baiting with Thunder Punch, but I decided to just full send the Superpower here. In hindsight, I think you can probably safely bait with the Thunder Punch, just so that way you aren't debuffed and taking more damage from acids. My opponent does end up debuffing me, so now I am at -2 attack. May as well make that -3 with the Superpower. They barely hang on, and I'm going to catch that Rock Tomb that was aimed at the Dragonite onto Lickitung. Lickitung now answered with the Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Ninetales, always a very scary Pokemon. I mentioned that earlier, but if you've played against it, my goodness, it is terrifying neutrally. The speed at which it gets the charge moves, the damage output, because Weather Ball obviously does more damage this season, and they go for an Overheat. That's definitely going to KO Lickitung. I'm going to save Dragonite and bring in Dedenne. I want to get an energy head start. They do have enough for the Overheat. Even at -2, this would do a lot of damage, so I will put up the shield and now throw right before they get their Weather Ball. And they read me like a book with a devastating catch onto Cresselia. What a beautiful read from my opponent. I still don't know what they have in the back. They have yet to show their third Pokemon. They're going to bring in the Ninetales. I get to another Parabolic Charge, and that's really nice for me, as now I'm at +2 defense. That means that I should tank the Overheat. Overheat is going to land. That's big damage. They're staying in. They get fully farmed down. That must mean they're weak in the back, and they are. It is Lapras. Although Lapras, even if I didn't make this Parabolic, I was pretty close to a Superpower, and I'm pretty sure a Superpower would have inflicted devastating damage onto the Lapras regardless. So, with the Parabolic plus Superpower double up, that's definitely going to be enough to take home the win. Tricky lead in the next match, Shadow Dragonite into Galarian Corsola. Now this is a scenario where Dragon Claw could potentially be nice. I try for a catch of a Nightshade, but my opponent is too patient, and now they're going to send out Shadow Scizor. Shadow Scizor, honestly, Lickitung is very fine to see this Pokemon because I'm up energy, so I will be able to get to double Body Slam, and while they don't have to shield the first, a second one is definitely going to knock them out. Scizor is very, very frail. So I will go for Body Slam number 2. My opponent puts up the shield, and that's very nice for me. I thought about Thunder Shocking down, but realized I didn't really want to take the Bullet Punches, so I figured I would just send in Dragonite, as Dragonite already has a bunch of energy. But then again, so does the Galarian Corsola. Corsola will fire off Nightshade, I put up the shield, and now will return fire with the Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch obviously will not knock out, I'm pretty close to a second one, but unfortunately this Corsola banked a ton of energy after I failed to catch onto the Lickitung, so they're able to force the shield. In the back, they're going to send out Blastoise. I immediately go for the Thunder Punch, and then we'll look to send out Dedenne. Dedenne has such a dominant matchup into Blastoise, but I need a Parabolic Charge and 4 Thunder Shocks to KO. If they do not, I'm going to lose this game. So I fire off the Parabolic Charge, it lands. Do we pick up the knockout? Yes, we do. We get the perfect farm down, and that's going to seal it, and we see our opponent resign the match, as Corsola will get KO'd by Parabolic Charge. We see what at this point is a very familiar lead in the next match leading into Shadow Ninetales. But this opponent save switches into a Lickitung. I will go for a superpower. This is almost guaranteed to be shielded from my opponent, and then we get a Lickitung mirror in 2025. This is my best way of neutralizing their Lickitung's energy. I'm up a shield, which is very nice. My opponent does have about a 10 lick head start, but importantly, that's not enough to put them a full Body Slam ahead. Additionally, they're at a health disadvantage in this matchup due to the fact that I did land those 10 Dragon Breaths. So I'm up a shield and I'm feeling pretty good. This mid game is going to take quite a while. My opponent looks content to just play it out. They throw a Body Slam, I throw a Body Slam, and I'm realizing that if I throw 2 more Body Slams, I will not be able to pick up the knockout. Their Lickitung is still too healthy, but a Body Slam into a Power Whip may actually be enough. So I'm going to be letting this through. They go for the Body Slam, it does not KO, but I get to the Power Whip, and I'm confident this will pick up the knockout. So I go for the Power Whip, it connects, down goes Lickitung, and now I have switch advantage, and they get basically no farm. I send back in the Dragonite, but this is where the spam of the Kanto Ninetales can potentially be very overwhelming. As they get to this Weather Ball every 8 turns, they're going to switch out. In the back, they have a Confusion Cresselia, and I really wish that I had Lickitung in this moment. Thunder Punch will be no-shielded, in comes Dedenne. I'm able to save a bunch of energy on my Dragonite, and now I will be shielding up the Dedenne just because I obviously can boost up my defense with Parabolic Charge. So I will go for Parabolic Charge number 1 into Cresselia. Cresselia no shields, they understand they can survive. I will make another, I could have CMP-tied there, but I figured that I wanted the residual energy because they're going to be sending in the Ninetales, and when they do, I want to be able to threaten this Pokemon. So the Parabolic Charge will land. I switch into the Dragonite as they fire off their energy. This will KO the Dragonite. I lose the energy, but I'm going for fast moves. I Thunder Shock down with the Dedenne. In comes Cresselia. It's a race to the finish, but we get the farm down and take the win. We see another Cresselia in the next match. Shadow Dragonite into another Confusion Cresselia. Confusion Cresselia is a weak spot for this team. Cresselia actually throwing a move into the Lickitung is great because I'd rather take the Moonblast here than on either of my 2 Pokemon. Out comes a Pachirisu, and that is not what I was expecting to see whatsoever. So they very well could be running a triple buffed Pokemon team, which is something I've seen quite a few times. I mean, granted, I'm running a double buffed Pokemon team, as obviously Lickitung and Dragonite have both received buffs this season. The fact that they don't throw a Thunderbolt does confirm my suspicions. Instead of Thunderbolt, they're probably running the new coverage move of Hyper Fang. Now, Hyper Fang does provide a little bit of coverage, but I still think that Pachirisu probably benefits from running Mono Electric. Here, I land a Body Slam, snipe down with the Lick, and they lose a lot of energy in the process. I aggressively pivot into Dedenne, not expecting it to be a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the back, and that decision to not concede the farm down just loses me the game on the spot. As man, I was not expecting Marowak in the back. I saw a Cresselia and a Pachirisu, and to be fair, who knows what's behind a Cresselia and a Pachirisu, but I was not expecting a Marowak, so I figured I could send in the Dedenne, try and play my way out, but unfortunately, I'm just going to get KO'd with 2 shields. This is only a Bone Club, but a Bone Club still does a lot of damage. So unfortunately, this was a very winnable game for me. If I just don't aggressively switch in the Dedenne and instead let the Lickitung get farmed down, I could have won. But instead, I aggressively pivoted and I lose with 2 shields. Hopping into the final match, we have Shadow Dragonite into Shadow Malamar. Now this matchup, it's an interesting one, as obviously their Psywave and my Dragon Breath basically have the same parameters, but it looks like they are doing more damage, and that's just because Dragonite is a far glassier Pokemon. Here, I will go for the superpower, and I didn't see a sneak, so my opponent may have CMB-tied. That would be the best case scenario for me, is I really want my opponent to go down both shields for swap and throw their energy. Whereas, had they just shielded and Psywave down, then they would have hit a bunch of energy and things could have got quite uncomfortable. In comes the Dedenne, they're staying in and going for a foul play. I will farm up to the back-to-back parabolic charges. Unfortunately, I can't quite get the farm down, but I still have a move on Dedenne, a shield, and a full health Lickitung. Although the moment they send in Corviknight, I'm realizing I may not even need the Lickitung. I'm now going to be a +2 Dedenne. If they throw the Air Cutter, I will shield it, but they don't. And now they're just getting KO'd. I'm now a +3 Dedenne. What do they have in the back? In the back, oh no, it's a Shadow Blastoise, and Dedenne is going for the sweep. Dedenne Parabolic Charge is gonna land. We get the Thunder Shock down. Lickitung gets to take the game off as we're able to secure the win. And now some final thoughts on Shadow Dragonite. First off, I think that they've done a really good job this season at making all of the dragons play very differently. I feel like previously, most of the dragon types played very similarly. It was all extreme fast move pressure, and a lot of the dragons didn't really have a lot of coverage. I mean, the best dragon was Regidrago, which had 0 coverage to speak of whatsoever. But this season, it really feels like there's a lot of different viable dragons, and they all compete in different ways. I think that Dragonite could end up having some really nice play in the Pokemon Go Championship Series, as people really value Pokemon that have a lot of flexibility, and I feel like that's what Dragonite can offer, as you have Dragon, Electric, and Fighting coverage, so there's not a lot of matchups outside of the Dedenne where you ever feel truly walled. However, as far as Go Battle League goes, it's definitely an improved Pokemon, but I still think it's a step behind some of the other pseudo-dragons, like the Shadow Gyarados of the world, the Shadow Charizard, stuff like that. It's a very crowded niche to be a dragon or a pseudo-dragon, so while it's definitely improved, Pokemon that just have insanely fast pacing, like the Gyarados 9998 or the Ember Charizard straight 8 to Air Cutter, you just get consistently outpaced. And when you're as glassy as Shadow Dragonite, that does not feel great. So all in all, I think it's a really nice improvement for Dragonite. I don't know if we're going to see a massive amount of Dragonite usage just because there's so many good dragons or pseudo-dragons. But hey, it makes it play in a very different way, and I think that's incredibly cool. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.